everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Haley and for today's video I wanted to do something that was a little bit different. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I normally do voiceovers, but today I actually wanted to step in front of the camera and talk to you. But I want to apologize in advance because I have my 3-year-old back there in the background. He is still awake, but I let him watch something on one of my old phones, so hopefully I can get through this video without too much distraction. So I wanted to share with you guys my 5 tips or pieces of advice for married couples. Now, I have not been married very long. My 3-year anniversary is coming up here in a couple of months and I'm only 22 years old. We got married when I was 19 years old. However, in those past 3 years, I really feel like I have learned so much. And these tips are things that I wish I had started implementing more or that I had learned more about earlier on in my marriage. So I wanted to take that time and share those things with you. I hope you guys enjoy and let's get into the video. My first piece of advice that I think is probably one of the most important pieces of advice in here is learn your spouse's love language and learn how you guys argue. This is so important. If you guys don't know what love languages are, there are 5 main ones. They are acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, and gifts. What I suggest is to find 2 main love languages that you like, because we all give and receive love in very different ways. So my suggestion is to find out what your love language is and what your spouse's love language is. I will leave a link in the description of some sort of link where you can read more about love languages and hopefully even find a quiz that I can link down below so you can take a test to find out what your love language is, because my love language in the beginning of mine and my husband's marriage was different than it is now. And I was actually kind of surprised to learn that my love language isn't necessarily what I thought it was. So when you learn your spouse's love language, it is going to help so much with a communication barrier. You want to show your spouse that you love them and you want your spouse to show that they love you, but maybe the way that you want to be shown that you're loved maybe is not his ideal way of how he wants to be loved. So I think that it's very important to learn your spouse's love language. And the other thing is to learn how you and your spouse argue. This is something that my husband and I struggled with for years. And we just recently kind of started figuring out how we argue and what works best for us. Maybe when you and your spouse are arguing, maybe they need more time to cool off than you do. Maybe they get quiet, maybe they kind of shut down, and maybe that's not how you are. Maybe you are the kind of person that just wants to deal with it head on and you just want to talk through it and get over it, and maybe your spouse is completely the opposite. So learn how you guys argue. This is not something you guys can take a quiz on like your love languages. This is just something that you learn over time. For me and my husband, I have learned that he gets quiet when we start to argue and he kind of shuts down, and I am that person that will just keep talking because I want to get through it, and I only need 5 or 10 minutes to cool down before I can be like, okay, I'm not mad anymore, like let's just get over it. And my husband needs a little bit more time and he gets very quiet. So we were having this barrier for a very long time where he was shutting down and walking away because he loves me and he didn't want to say the wrong thing or get even more angry. And I was the type of person that wasn't understanding, and I thought, well, does he not love me? Does he not care about me as much because he's not talking to me? I felt like he was ignoring me, but that wasn't it. So now we have kind of found our middle ground, so that way when we do get into arguments, because every single couple on the face of this earth does, we know how to better deal with it. So learn your spouse's love language and learn how you guys argue. They kind of go hand in hand, and they're going to save you a little bit of trouble if you figure those things out sooner rather than later. Tip number 2 is to practice frugality. Practice being frugal within your marriage and your household. I don't know one couple that has not struggled financially in some shape, or form at some point during their time. And maybe you are in a really good financial spot right now, but sometimes things change, sickness comes, jobs get called off, etc., etc., and you want to be better prepared for that. So some of the ways that I practice frugality within my household is, number one, to make my coffee and tea at home. It costs me $5 to get a thing of coffee for home that I can make all week long. Whereas if I'm going to the coffee shop down the road, I'm spending $4 each time I go. And maybe going out and getting coffee is something that you love. Maybe it's like your go-to thing that just you really enjoy doing. Try doing spending freezes where you say, okay, for 2 weeks, I am not going to go out and get a coffee. Or maybe if your husband enjoys going out and buying lunch on his lunch break, maybe he can do a spending freeze where he says, okay, I'm going to go 10 work days without buying myself a lunch, and I'm going to bring one from home. Another way that I practice frugality is doing my manicures and pedicures at home. I do a full-blown pamper routine every single week. I will leave that link down below as well as learning how to shape my own eyebrows instead of going to a salon place to get those done. That in itself will save you a lot of money. And one of the last things I do is coupon. I coupon for groceries and household items. That is not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody enjoys doing that, but it's a way that I practice frugality within my household to save a little bit of money. And you will kind of figure out how you can practice frugality at home. Maybe that is cutting down on your weekly grocery budget. Maybe that is cutting down on how many times you're going out to eat. I think that it is important to practice frugality within your marriage and household, no matter what financial situation you are in. And frugality looks different for everybody depending on their family size, income, debt, all sorts of things. But I think it's important to practice that so you are prepared if a major change comes your way. Tip number 3 is to respect your husband. Now, I am sure we have heard this all throughout time, but I didn't really realize how vitally important it was and how many ways that I'm doing the wrong thing and I don't even realize it until I read this book. I believe it's called For Women Only. I will try to look it up and find it and link it in the description. It was such a good eye-opening book. Quick disclaimer, it does have a little bit of religion-based things in it, but not enough that I feel like maybe someone who is not religious couldn't get something out of it. But have you guys ever been the backbone of a joke that maybe was meant to be taken lightly or silly, but it's kind of maybe embarrassing to you and maybe it hurts your feelings a little bit? We so often can accidentally do that and we don't even realize what we're doing. And I just feel like you have to be very, very, very careful of what you are saying about your spouse in front of people, and not only being respectful in public, but also making sure that you are bringing that respect into your household as well. So I try very, very hard to build my husband up, and especially when we're in public, because you never want to be the wife that is always condescending and disrespectful to her husband, not just behind closed doors, but in public as well. Now, don't inflate your husband's ego and give him a big head. You don't have to do that. That is not what I am saying at all, but just make sure that you're being very careful with your words and your actions. For example, maybe if you are with some of your friends and your husband is there and you are just kind of laughing and being silly and you're saying, oh my gosh, my husband never ever does this, or oh my gosh, he always does that. And maybe it's something little and maybe it's something silly that's meant to be taken in a joking manner, but sometimes it can be a little bit hurtful to your husband. So be careful with your words and what you are saying to your husband behind closed doors and in public as well. My 4th tip is to take care of yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You can try, and oftentimes we do, but you are never going to be the best version of yourself for you, your husband, your kids, whoever, if you're not taking time to care for yourself. Now, my husband and I live a more traditional marriage. He goes to work, I stay home, I take care of the house, the kids, cooking, cleaning, etc. And he works and goes to night school as well. So we live a little bit more of a traditional marriage, which a lot of times can get misconstrued into thinking that the wife is a slave and she's not doing anything for herself, but that is not true. Now, how you fill your cup is going to look different to each person. Maybe you enjoy getting together with a friend and being with them. Maybe you enjoy getting out of the house and walking or taking a hike or whatever. Maybe you enjoy staying in and doing a full pamper routine, which is what I like to do. But you have to make sure that you're filling your own cup, that you're taking care of yourself. And stay-at-home moms or wives, make sure that you are getting up every single day, you're getting yourself ready. You don't have to get full glammed up every single day, but you don't want your husband leaving for work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then when he gets home at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, you are still with your unbrushed hair and the same pajamas that you were in when he left. So sometimes, and I don't do that every single day. I definitely have my days where I relax. I kind of stay in very comfy clothes all day long, but I make an effort to get up, do my hair, wash my face, put on like leggings and a top at least. So make sure that you take care of yourself and that you're not trying to pour from an empty cup, and you never want to come off as slobbish or lazy because you're not taking care of your own personal needs, which is so important. Now, my last tip number 5, is to create an inviting and loving home for your husband and your family. This is probably the second most important tip. Number 1 is the love language and the arguing, and number 2 is the creating a loving and inviting environment. And what I mean by that is you want your home to be a place where you enjoy being, where your husband enjoys coming home to. Now, after I had my 3rd baby, my husband had just gotten out of the military. We were living with family, and we are so incredibly, eternally grateful for what his family did for us, but it was also very hard, and we were struggling a lot emotionally, and I was very grouchy, very grumpy. I was snapping a lot easier than normal, and I was getting upset with my husband because he was not home and spending as much time with me as I wanted. And he came to me one day brutally and honestly and very bluntly, and he said, "I don't enjoy being around you right now. I don't enjoy coming home." And at first I was very offended and I didn't understand. I thought, how could he say something like that? But it caused me to open my eyes and take a step back and realize how I was as a person, and that it wasn't all him. So what I tried to do now is to create a loving environment that he wants to come home to every single day. Greet your husband warmly at the door if you can. I know sometimes we're not always home, we get very busy, but try to greet your husband warmly at the door when you come home. Give him a hug, a kiss, ask him how his day was, and give him a few minutes to decompress. I didn't realize how important this was in a man's life until I read that book. They sometimes have a hard time going from work mode to walking through the door and being husband and dad, kind of in just a second there, and switching those gears very quickly. So when my husband tries to get home, I usually have dinner waiting for him, but if not, I try to just give him a few minutes to decompress. I don't throw the children at him and run upstairs and say, "Good luck, I've been with them all day, I need a break." I try to let him sit on the couch, take his shoes off, relax, maybe check his phone, turn on the TV, ask him how his day is, and just give him a little bit of time to decompress. So I try to check myself when I am expecting him home, and even if I am feeling stressed out and overwhelmed because of the kids and it's been a long day, I still try to put that aside and greet him warmly at the door and ask him how his day was, so that he's not walking through the door and going, "Oh my gosh, there's so much chaos, you're so angry and I haven't even been home all day." I just breathe and let him decompress for a little bit and create a loving, warm environment that he genuinely enjoys being in. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got a couple of tips and tricks and pieces of advice that you can start maybe implementing into your marriage, or maybe implementing it more. A lot of these things I was implementing into my marriage, but I wasn't doing it enough and I wasn't doing it consistently. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys next time in my future uploads. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it to this point, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.